I'm why did I do the double wave? That's very, very in your face. Anyway, sorry about that. I'm here to talk about what I have been watching in the month of July, and because it's summer, I've been watching blooming a lot. So I'm going to try and keep this video as short and snappy as possible. So I'm wearing a bit of a visual clue, actually, as to what I don't know if you can even see, as to what I've been watching in July. Can you see? But basically, yeah, I watched all of the original Star Wars trilogy, and that was cool because I'd never seen it before. But weirdly, it's like I don't feel changed in a way that I'll explain in a second. Because before I'd watched the trilogy, I was like, oh, I'm excited, it's gonna be like life-changing, it's this huge thing and like everyone's favourite thing. So it's like after I watch it, I'll be like, oh, I'll finally understand. And I watched it and it was great and I enjoyed it, but I feel kind of like the same person I was before I'd seen it. I don't really feel any different, and I think it's because it's such a big thing. I kind of knew obviously a lot of the plot points. Also, I did play the Lego games when I was a kid, so I feel like I knew kind of a lot of the story, and where I was expecting it to be this huge thing I'd never seen before, it was kind of very familiar to me. But that was also great because it was just so comforting and gorgeous. It's so pretty, and for ones like films that were made in 70s and 80s or whatever, like the special effects still hold up and everything looks incredible. And it was so lovely to see Carrie Fisher, because I love Carrie Fisher, but I loved her kind of separate to Star Wars in a way. So I got into her through just her interviews about mental health and about women in Hollywood, and I knew that she was a writer. That's my doorbell. Why? But it was so nice to see her as an actress, and as she, you know, originally got famous for. And obviously Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill, everyone's great in it, except Yoda. Actually, why did no one tell me that Yoda was really annoying? I spent my whole life believing that he was this cute little, like, lovable green teacher person who, like, helped Luke on his way. But he's just so irritating, and I wanted to throttle him like most of the time he was on screen. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to rewatching it, because I feel like I watched it quite close together. I think in the space of like 1 or 2 days I watched the trilogy, and kind of the events of one film are like bleeding into the other. I can't really pick out what happened where. So I'm looking forward to rewatching it and just kind of familiarising myself with that series, because it is very, very good. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I did talk about it at the end of my last what I've been watching video, but I went to see Baby Driver for the 3rd time, and if that doesn't tell you how good it is, I don't know what will. I've been to the cinema to see it 3 bloody times and it's still incredible. It's so well made, and I notice like little things every time I go in. So the way Edgar Wright directs, it's like you watch it once and it's brilliant, but then you go and watch it again and you notice things that like you didn't notice the first time, because things at the beginning of the film allude to events at the end of the film, and it's really subtle things, like, you know, things that are on the TV in the background, or like little bits of music and little like graffiti on the wall, and you're like, oh, that means something, and it's really, really cool and it's great, and you just keep wanting to like pause it because you're like, oh, I don't want to see what he's done, but then you're like, I don't want to pause it because I want to watch it, and it's beautiful and it's so good. So yeah, I think I rambled enough about Baby Driver, honestly, but I could ramble about it for hours. And then I went to see SpiderMan Homecoming, which coincidentally I also saw 3 times. I think 3 is like my magic number, because I remember when I fell in love with Sing Street last year, I went to see that 3 times. I think that's just like what I do. If I really love a film, I'm like, I'll go see it 3 times. I don't know why 3. It's like, Spider-Man was so bloody good, and despite all the kind of cross studio shenanigans and, you know, the fact that we've had to have like a 3rd reboot, the film still felt quite fresh and original and something that you hadn't really seen before, and that was brilliant. I thought that was a really huge achievement, in the sense that it was basically like a John Hughes film, and a lot of people have said that, and they said that that was like a lot of their, you know, inspiration for it, and they even referenced Ferris Bueller's Day Off in the film. But it is just kind of like a teenager that just happens to have superpowers, and he's still going through all the stuff that like teenagers go through, but he just happens to be dealing with superpowers at the same time, and that was absolutely brilliant. Because in the Andrew Garfield films, which I did like, it's kind of like he's Peter Parker, he's a bit of a geek and a nerd and an outcast, but then he gets superpowers and he's kind of cool and buff and saving the world now. But in this one, it's like he gets powers, but he's still just a kind of teenage screw up and he messes things up and he makes mistakes, and he's not a perfect superhero right from the off. And I thought that was really well done, because if you got powers when you were 15, like you wouldn't next day become like Spider-Man. You'd be kind of messing up and making mistakes and getting things wrong, and I loved that aspect of the story. Also, if you've seen it, the Captain America infomercials. Honestly, like, I felt so blessed for that. That was just, whoever thought of that, how do I thank them? Honestly, that was brilliant. Then I watched To the Bone on Netflix, and I feel very, not nervous, but I'm very tentative to say anything about this film because I've seen a lot of the controversy and I disagree with a lot of it, to be honest. I gave it 3 stars, and I think a lot of people have just dismissed it as like, oh, this is trash, this is annoying, this is problematic, blah 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 blah. I have a problem with that word, problematic. I was thinking of doing a whole video on this, which I actually might, because it's been mulling over in my head and I'm like, I should talk about that. But anyway, I thought the film was good. It definitely had flaws, but I'm still grateful for the fact that it exists. First of all, Lily Collins is incredible. You can really tell that she has gone through eating disorders herself, and I read about that in her book, which released earlier this year. And so watching it felt so raw and really painful, and I think that was the strongest aspect of the film, and you really, I personally anyway, got invested in like her storyline, and I really wanted her character to, you know, succeed and get better, and I really cared for her. And also I thought it was quite good in terms of diversity. I know that the main character is a kind of straight white female, which is what we've seen a lot before, but a lot of the background characters were, one of them was male, he was really annoying, but anyway, one of them was male, and one of them, you know, wasn't white, and one of them was an adult, and it just showed that eating disorders, or any disorders of any kind, don't discriminate. You can be any age, any race, any demographic, and you can still suffer with an eating disorder or mental disorder. And even though that point wasn't really hammered home in the film, and it very much stuck to the main character throughout really, it was something that was quite refreshing in a way. Even though it was very subtle, I hadn't seen it in other films of this nature, so I was grateful for that. And I think obviously it can be improved upon, but we shouldn't just dismiss the fact that it did kind of try in a way. And that's what I basically had a problem with, people saying that it didn't go far enough, and it didn't. That's completely true, and it could always be better. Diversity is always something that we're striving towards, but that doesn't mean that you should just dismiss this film and say, oh, it's trash, and just overlook the good points of it because it has flaws. Because in a way, that over-criticism would just deter any filmmakers from making films, or any authors from writing books on sensitive topics about mental health, or about eating disorders, or about anything else that's sensitive. And we don't want that. I'd rather that there was something that got things a bit wrong or wasn't perfect than we had nothing at all, in a way. Because even though it's not the perfect representation, it's still representation, and it's still there to start a conversation, and that is quite important, and I don't want to just dismiss that. Then I went to see Dunkirk, and oh my god, it was an experience. If you're going to use that word for any film, use it for Dunkirk. Much like the war and the events that it depicts, the film of Dunkirk is absolutely unrelenting. It's chaos incarnate. You really get a sense of that when there's a moment of silence in the film and you don't hear anything. Then that's when you realise that you've had a constant soundtrack of like gunfire and this huge haunting score by Hans Zimmer that doesn't let up, and you only notice in the moments of silence, and it just suddenly comes crashing down. You're like, oh my god, this is like the only bit of silence. I'm suddenly like so overwhelmed by this sound. I also really loved the way that the different narratives weaved up. I've seen that a lot of people have criticised this, that it was quite hard to follow, but I personally didn't see that, or didn't think that. It followed 3 different perspectives. So at Dunkirk it followed the people that were on the land, the people that were in the sea, and the people that were in the air. And they take place in different timelines in a way, but I like the way that they overlap, because I thought it showed that that experience of being a soldier and being there was one that was universal to everyone, and that kind of almost brought them together but also pulled them apart in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, but the storylines were so interweaved but then also separate. And I thought that was so true, because you're like this community, this army, this brotherhood, but then also it's every man for himself, and that does come across in one particular scene in the boat with Harry Styles' character, and people who've seen it will know what I mean. And speaking of Harry Styles, because I know that people will want to know, he is a good actor, and you don't really notice that he is not like a professional actor. He very much just sinks in, that wasn't meant to be a pun, sinks into like the background of the film in a way, and you don't notice him sticking out at all, which is brilliant. And I would love to see him do another film. I think he has actually got quite a lot of talent as an actor, and everyone in the film was brilliant. And yeah, it was just a very, very hard but good experience. So yeah, even though that's not all that I've been watching, I've been watching a lot more. For example, I rewatched the 5th Harry Potter film, I rewatched The Princess Diaries, which I do a lot apparently. It's some of what I've been watching, and this video would be like an hour long if I went into all of it. But yeah, just let me know what you've been watching, and if you've seen what I've watched, please discuss it with me. I'd love to, especially the more controversial ones. I'd love to hear people's different opinions on that. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.